Hi, I'm Ross Snyder, one of the violinists of the Tesla Quartet, and I'm joined here by Bonnie Lander, who is one of 12 composers who have written new quartets for the Tesla's Alternating Currents Commissioning Project. Bonnie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today, and thanks for writing us such a wonderful piece of music.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for playing it.
I'll launch into the questions now. First being because this project came kind of out of a need for the Tesla Quartet to stay creative during the pandemic. Can you talk about how these last few months have affected your life as a composer and performer, and what you've been doing during this time to kind of cope with the changes?
Sure. Um, I feel like many people, end of April and beginning of May were supposed to be, big work months. I had a bunch of performances lined up, some things I'd been working towards all year, some touring in the summer, and then it's just all gone.
Yeah.
It's just gone. It's like gone, and there's nothing you can do. So in the beginning, when this happened, it was a little unbelievable,
Hmm.
to just have life as we know it just completely pause. So at first, it was very difficult to cope, I think, with this like huge shift into instability and this huge shift into unknown change,
Yeah.
and grieving the loss of that work and grieving the loss of
Sure.
those opportunities. Many of them are delayed, hope, and they will find either other ways to express themselves. But at the time, it was just like this huge cut. Here's your life. No, it isn't.
Hmm.
So at first, it was just a lot of kind of coping with this weird reality. And now that a few months have passed, there's been new opportunities for artwork in my world that is really nice.
Hmm.
So, for example, I've been doing a lot of virtual recording projects. People who need a soprano voice, they send me some tracks, and I can record a part and send it back to them
Hmm.
to record here at home, much like you're doing with your quartet commissions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I haven't done work like that in a long time, and it was just been really fun to get back into that. I've managed to shift some of my students to online teaching, which isn't as terrible as I thought it might be, and getting kind of used to it.
Yeah, there's a
And
learning curve, but eventually I think it becomes its own unique opportunity.
yeah, and my group Rhymes with Opera, we had to cancel our main stage, our live main stage, but instead we decided to launch a cyber season.
Hmm.
So we wanted to get out, 90s and call it cyber season.
Uh-huh.
So we've been using that as an opportunity to really like grow our online platform.
Hmm.
We've had several events already. We have several more events. We're doing our summer composition workshop online this year, and we're looking forward towards the next year of doing either a live show or a virtual show, and kind of talking about what does
Uh-huh.
that mean, and how can we prepare for either scenario at the same time.
Right. There's a level of flexibility you have to have going forward with how you might present everything. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Definitely, we're stretching ourselves, I think, as
yeah,
musicians, but also as as performers and presenters, and doing everything we can just to keep it going. I know you're also a soprano in addition to being a
mm-hmm.
composer, and we've talked a little bit before, and you mentioned how in your composition you kind of straddle this line between the kind of structured composition and more free improvisation. So can you talk about that process, or like what inspires you to create the types of music that you do?
Mm, I can try. um, yeah, I was brought up in a very in, rigid classical music technique. So I actually grew up playing the violin,
Hmm.
um, and then moved into operatic singing as a teenager, and did my undergrad master's in operatic singing. But in my master's, I started to get really into contemporary music, contemporary vocal music, modern vocal music. And I started doing some graphic scores, Cage aria, you know, and other Cage works, and Kathy Berberian, Stripsody, and, works that just used what Stuart Saunders Smith calls off the score notation, you know?
Sure.
And then from there I started to get into improvisation, and I found that, like, for the kind of spontaneous performance that I do as an improviser, that exact notation didn't really make sense to me as much as more abstracted representations
Hmm.
of of gesture and meaning. So I have a series of pieces that I've done that are unconventionally notated, if notated at all. I made a series of graphic scores called Objects in Space, and those are
Hmm.
just graphic, very loose interpretation.
Hmm.
Um, and I made some pieces for electroacoustics and improvisation. So me improvising with pre-recorded electronics that I made
Hmm.
of
Uh-huh.
my voice. Um, done a few of those, and I also wrote some sonic meditations, and in honor of my, Pauline Oliveros, who I find very inspiring.
Hmm.
But I've always really liked works where there's sort of a task, and then the piece is how the musician fulfills this task.
Uh-huh.
And I really find that to be very inspiring
Uh-huh.
as an improviser, and then as a composer.
Sure. And then every performance is so much more unique because, because of it, because so much is left, to the moment, to the interpretation in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
and the piece you wrote for us, Protest Meditation, actually also has this, is kind of semi-graphically notated. I mean, you've got the musical staff there for us to see and notated, but it's kind of beautifully hand drawn, and it looks like kind of a sheet of paper that that maybe you picked up off your desk, and maybe we can throw up a screenshot in post production or something, so people can see what it looks like. But can you talk a little bit about how the piece came about for you, Protest Meditation? I know in talking before the recent protests around the Black Lives Matter
Yes.
movement and the unjust killings of George Floyd and others, kind of it all happened kind of at the same time when we were putting this project together. So maybe you can talk about
Mm-hmm.
how that inspired you.
Sure. Yeah, I think when I got word of this commission, I think I even emailed you to be like, probably going to make you a graphic score. It's
Yeah.
like one of the first things I said to you, and I knew that was something I wanted to try to do with your group. And then the the deadline was June 8th,
Hmm.
and this was right in the middle of this eruption of protests that happened all over the country.
Yeah.
Something like every single state was protesting the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, um, and we've all been inside for 3 months, and all of a sudden everyone's outside, like
Hmm.
screaming for justice. And it was it was so I couldn't think. I don't know. It was very hard to be like, I'm gonna write a piece now about something nice,
Sure.
and there was no way to not have it completely consume my mind, and I think the minds of all of us during that week. And
Sure.
then there was no, so I wanted to find a way to write a piece that spoke truthfully to how I was experiencing the world in that time,
Hmm.
and how moved I am, still am. Protests are still happening. People are still fighting for the justice of Black lives.
Hmm.
Um, so this piece, the graphic element of the piece, I knew that I wanted to do a tuning meditation. I really love string ensemble, like string quartets, and I really love the opportunity for really precise tuning. So I knew I wanted to
Hmm.
make a tuning piece, and I
Hmm.
knew I wanted it to be like tuning to unison.
Hmm.
Um, and then, after going to these protests and being in the street with thousands of people who are all chanting these protest chants for hours and hours and hours, and you're repeating them, and one stops and another one starts, and they sometimes they overlap and they catch, and it was just this really incredible experience. And there was something really beautiful in, you see it, you can look on Facebook and see Black Lives Matter or
Hmm.
hashtag no justice, no peace, but to be out there and to be saying it and to be chanting it is a different experience. It changes the meaning of the words and it changes you.
Hmm.
To say Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, like over and over again, to say
Right.
no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace, and obviously say his name, George Floyd. When you say these things, when you actually express them, it's it's so much more effective, and it changes you and it reminds you. So I like the meditation on these words, and I like that, this piece uses rhythms from those chants, not the words, but the rhythms for you as the string players to remember as you play. And you're
Right.
spending 3 minutes doing really intense tuning exercise while keeping these words in your mind.
Right.
So I thought I would borrow a little bit of that, like that feeling, and
Yeah.
have this as a snapshot of this experience.
It's as much about the process, as you were saying before, the process of creating in the moment. That meditative process is what results in the in the final explanation of the feelings, of the sentiments of the music. I think it's a very it's a very unique way of making music. I think that it's not, not really traditional for a string quartet. So it's a great opportunity for us to kind of stretch our way of working and our way of interacting and getting in touch with the music. So thank you for writing it for us and giving us the opportunity to premiere it. And we've just had a really great time working on the music.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. And I look forward, to speaking with you more in the future. Hopefully, we get more chances to work together.
That would be wonderful. Have a
All
wonderful
right.
day. Nice to talk to you too.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.